Welcome. Greetings of peace and love. This is Miracles with a Twist. I'm Lori Cardona. I'm here with my dear and beloved friend, Steve Pollack. Steve's been with us before, twice before. This is our third time to be blessed by his presence. And what happened in getting Steve back was he listened to a conversation that I had with Linda Pezos. I guess it was one or two podcasts ago, earlier in March 2025. And at one point in the discussion, I was referring to the Judeo-Christian concept of Adam as an Adam and Eve. And since we were talking about science as the new mysticism, I referred to the metaphysical, mystical, perhaps, concept of atom, meaning all of us being a part of the particle that creates one human family, that we are all atom, not Adam. And he called me up and he was like, I just had this same discussion. We are of like mind. We're talking about the same thing at the same time with his group. Steve is a metaphysical meditation teacher, facilitator, and he has weekly, more than weekly, I guess a couple times a week, he hosts meditations. So, hi, Steve, welcome back.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have you. It's great that we have these discussions and they go from these long, in-depth conversations to, let's make it public so that we can dig even deeper. So, Steve, just so you know, at the end, I'd like you to let people know how they can find you, and then I will add that link in the comment section. However, you were with us twice before, so in the Rev Lori Cardona YouTube channel, there's a list called Miracles with a Twist, and if you scroll, 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 you'll find Steve within at two other times, having two other discussions. So I'm really glad that we have this opportunity to take our private discussion and make it public. So I wrote down all the questions you asked me because wow, I mean, we really kind of went all over the place with it in terms of our concepts, our ideas, and who we want to be. Who we want to be because as they say, we're not yet who we want to be, but thank God we're not who we used to be. So we're in progress. We're works in progress. So because of the fact that you noticed and got your ears perked up by the concept of atom or atom, you asked me to expand a little bit on it based on A Course in Miracles. So in A Course in Miracles, there's a line very early on in it's chapter one. It's a list of miracle principles, and principle number 19 says this: miracles make minds one in God. They depend on cooperation because the sonship is the sum of all that God created. Now, a Course in Miracles is made up of 31 chapters and 365 lessons, all of which are trying to convince us that this is true, that we are a sonship. And in order to be gender neutral, I decided to call it someship. We are the someship of a greater, higher source, which goes back to a correlation with the concept of atom, that we are all aspects of one greater source over generations, over time. And is there really time? And so when we look at it from a mystic perspective, we believe that we are walking this path to understand that no matter who we meet, how we meet, whatever our circumstances, we're looking at it as a ship opportunity to bond, to create, to rise. So what's your take on it?
I like that. Well, um, Adam or atom, I was looking at a diagram online of the atom, and one single atom is very similar to the basic structure of our universe, or actually our solar system. So when life was created here in the physical world, or the whole physical realm or the physical plane was created, it wasn't just a man and then a woman. Maybe it was virtually all of life, the entire solar system and the infinite number of possible forms of life that we find here on Earth. And the thing I found that made a strong impression on me was the number of atoms in every single human being. It's estimated to be an octillion of atoms. That's a one with 27 zeros after it. So just there's so much in each of our physical forms. And if one human being has an octillion of atoms, imagine how many a whale or a giraffe would have. And as if an octillion isn't enough, um, we used to think, the atom was the smallest particle, but then we got down to protons and neutrons and electrons, and then even smaller um, to the quark and quantum particles, quanta, and even smaller than that, the Higgs boson particle, the God particle. So if there's an octillion of atoms in each of our bodies, I don't think we even have a number to quantify how many Higgs boson particles. It could be nearly infinite. So that just really struck me when I looked at the structure of an atom and I realized that's a little mini solar system right there.
Ah, yeah, we are all mini solar systems. We're all sort of rotating around each other, and it's an opportunity to recognize our oneness, the brother, the sister, and whoever it is we're rotating by. That there's another atom. What's the word? That's a big word for 27,000 zeros.
Jillian.
Whew,
I-
gosh.
I'll tell you. As a matter of fact, one more thing about that. Adam, Adam, comes from the Hebrew word Adamah, which means earth. And so the first human was supposedly molded from the actual earth. And that's why they say, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, or our bodies eventually go back into the earth. But the Adamah is the Hebrew word for earth, and it's right in the Bible where it says, "Let us make the first human in the image of the divine."
The first human concept, and one of the things we talked about was how so much is metaphor, metaphysical concepts to understand that it wasn't just like that one person, that it represents the earth. It represents the earth and our human experience as spiritual beings on earth. Which takes me to your next question about um, the concept of physical versus metaphysical, which is where we can expand it to asking about the mystical experience. So, in A Course in Miracles, it explains itself as a metaphysical foundation for understanding life as temporary in the physical form and not quite real as we would want to define reality. And so this is a concept that gets difficult if we're new to these concepts, but it's an ancient truth, because in the Vedanta it talks about Maya, meaning the world is an illusion. In the many of the metaphysical paths and concepts, it talks about the dream. We're in a dream. So A Course in Miracles talks about an illusion. So it's not that we can't say that, oh, these things that are happening are not of my earth experience, but we're saying that if we can look at them from a metaphysical perspective, then we can say everything has its purpose in a higher way of looking at the world, in a higher way of looking at our experience, higher meaning, that we're not just confined to our ego, our judgments, our concerns, but that we can look at a bigger picture. And that way, the bigger picture allows us to see the things that we may have judged as good or bad, as being a part of the illusion that we need to experience so that we can see with eyes that are not just confined to our physical eyes.
Absolutely. One of my friends from South America told me about a saying that she grew up with, and I can't remember which country it was in, that every human mind is a universe unto itself because nobody has quite the same background, education, conditioning, values, beliefs, purpose, and meaning that you have. Um, and Eastern mysticism suggests the entire physical universe, as you said, Lori, is but a dim reflection of a higher universe, and therefore this physical world, even our physical bodies, are some form of illusion, projection, simulation. That's a popular word now we're hearing coming out of quantum physics and quantum mechanics, that it's a sort of simulation because everything in the physical world is impermanent. It's not lasting. Everything in the physical plane changes over time, and that concept that we're not real is, as you mentioned, very difficult for us to swallow and really grasp. So I find it easier to look at the bigger metaphysical picture, the planes, the realms and regions of creation, each one a reflection of the one above it. So this earth reality is a reflection of the astral, and the astral is a reflection of the causal. And the mind, the egoic mind, is said to have its home at the top of the causal plane, of the causal region. So that's why when we go into deep states of spiritual awareness and we raise our consciousness up to that level, we get to the very root of the mind and we can change the mind. We can change our attitudes so that we're not caught up in the egoic mind here on the physical.
I love that you brought up quantum physics because that's where the whole previous conversation I had with Linda Pezos brought you and I together to talk about that because thanks to quantum physics, there's been a almost like a the ego's need to know and to have proof, and it was able to bring proof of the ages, of the ancient times, of what is actually happening on that causal level and on those higher levels. When we look at energy centers, sometimes referred to as chakras, that there's a place where we can move beyond this earthbound experience to a higher level of experience. And quantum physics, I call them sacred scientists. They're allowing us to see, with our need to see the truth of what can actually occur and what is occurring in our energetic body, which allows us to understand that this is actually our higher mind. And in our earth experience, you said, oh, we all have our own individual mind, which is true. But then on that higher level, we are joined. We have a joined mind. A student of mine years ago did this experiment where she had people lay down on the ground and she had like this crystal and she was saying, oh, this person's chakra and this person's chakra, this one's really, tight and this one's wide open. And she kept going, up to the different, where's your blocks? Is it in your heart? Is it in your throat? Is it your third eye? And then she got to the crown chakra. But then when she got beyond the crown chakra, she said, everyone is exactly the same here. Everyone is exactly the same. And that's where we go back to that atom, that once we get beyond the physical body to a higher consciousness, that's where we join. And that's where our spiritual practice moves us to that realization.
Yes.
Um, which takes me to your next question, unless you had something else you wanted to say about that.
Just I love what you just shared because I hold the same. It resonates with my belief that when we rise up in consciousness, whether it's through meditation or some other spiritual practice, we get to a level eventually where we realize we are pure essence of the divine, pure soul, and everyone's soul is exactly the same at that level.
Yeah. And so your next question brings me to our human challenges because we're talking about, oh, we're all the same and we're doing this work to rise higher. I like to say, pray harder, rise higher, love steadily, forgive readily. So what's the challenge in all of that? And so your next question was, are we functioning with others from an unconditional or a conditionally loving perspective? And so there are 10 chapters in A Course in Miracles out of 31 that make reference to holy relationships. Now, a holy relationship is an unconditional relationship, but in our human experience, we might say they're unconditional moments because a holy relationship is one where I see you completely as a reflection of me, even when I'm mad at you, even when I want to blame you for something. And what has come to most of us who are being conscious about this is that it's easy to be nice to a stranger, but we might get really troubled by our most intimate relationships. And why is that? It's because as much as we want to create holy relationships, we have this pesky ego. We have subconscious programming. We have triggers and all these things that are part of our human experience. And that's why I say it's spiritual practice, because once we become willing to really see the other as a reflection of me, then and maybe of my desire to have a particular experience, then at some point we don't get so caught up in the blame and shame, the need to control, the need to point out what you did versus my responsibility for what occurred. And so there's some quotes in A Course in Miracles. There, like I said, there's 10 chapters, and so I could talk about this a lot. So I narrowed it down to two. There's one that says this: when you feel the holiness of your relationship threatened by anything, stop instantly and offer the Holy Spirit your willingness, in spite of fear, to let him exchange this instant for the Holy One you would rather have. And there's another part where it says, whenever one of you recognizes the insanity. So it's a recognition that in our human experience, we sometimes go off kilter. And the practice, if we're willing to accept this mission, is to stop and say, you know what? I don't want to see you as anything other than holy. I don't want to treat you as anything other than sacred. Now, that's the challenge, and we're working on it. It says relationships need to be frequently renewed because we have to constantly remember. Another thing it says is, this is a little prayer. You could say this to yourself. Let's say you're having an upset with someone. You may not want to say this out loud because they might think you've lost your mind. But here's a little prayer you can say. I desire this holy instant for myself, that I may share it with you, whom I love. It is not possible that I can have it without you, or you without me. Yet it is wholly possible for us to share it now. And I so choose this instant as the one to offer to the Holy Spirit, that his blessings may descend upon us and keep us both in peace. I mean, if only in the height of your upset that you could remember that I could remember that. To say, oh, I would trade this moment of human upset for a holy instant, recognizing the holiness of our relationship, and trade the upset for that, trade the upset for peace. And one last thing. Look gently upon your brother, look gently upon the other, and remember the ego's weakness is revealed in both your sights. And so it just goes on to say that it is up to us to remember. And that's why we practice and we set an intention and we have willingness, because we tend to default to being very conditioned, and the desire is to have these holy relationships. And that could be someone who cuts you off on the road and you go, oh, hey, child of God, or the person who lives closest to your heart. Both of those opportunities, a whole world of opportunities to see myself reflected in the other, and to desire in that moment that we have a holy relationship.
That's really inspiring.
Thanks.
It really is. We live in such a conditional world because we're under the influence of the egoic mind and our personal desires. And like you said, we find fault with each other. Especially as we get to know someone very well. Familiarity breeds contempt sometimes, right?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, when two people find each other, whether they're friends or lovers, and they just like each other very strongly, and they're coming from that higher level of consciousness where they kind of they're viewing the person through purely unconditionally loving eyes. They just see the beauty, the spirit, the brilliance in the other, and they fall in love with it. It's one of the most wonderful experiences you can have here on the earth plane. In fact, I wonder if maybe that's one of the reasons why a lot of souls incarnate here. Um, but we find it challenging over time to maintain that level of unconditional love. One of the examples of purest examples of unconditional love in this world is the love of a mother or father for a child, right? They'll do anything to protect the child. They help to bring it into the world, give it life. Um, but when our hearts have been wounded or shut down, when we're guarding our hearts to protect them, then it's very hard to love unconditionally. We shut down, and we just sometimes, I think we've all been conditioned to believe that we don't measure up to the biblical ideals, right? That we don't measure up to the perfection of Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad or Moses. And we have a hard time even with unconditional self-love because we've been so conditioned in a judgmental world. We've been criticized countless times. We learned to criticize ourselves. And we sometimes take that to the extreme where we beat up on ourselves and we've lost touch so much with the unconditional love. So that's one of the most challenging things I find that people tell me all the time and that I've struggled with myself is finding the unconditional love for self and can you see yourself? This is my big question. Can you find a way to see yourself through the eyes of unconditional love as Source sees you? And that's not to say, oh, I'm great and be arrogant and prideful. It's just to realize, no, in essence, I'm pure unconditional love, humility, nonviolence, selflessness, all those divine attributes. And can we see ourselves as that? And can we actually feel the reality of that? It's very difficult to do and when we're caught up in the egoic mind or in conflict, as you say, and I do a lot of work with couples in conflict. I do a lot of counseling work. But in meditation, it's effortless. It just dawns on you that suddenly you realize I am unconditional love, and that's my true essence.
When as you were speaking, it reminded me of a conversation I had recently with my spiritual director. And I was telling him all the ways that I have failed, and being the person to meet my own standards, the way I want to be, how I want to be. And at some point he said, Hold on a minute. I need to take all your complaints about yourself to God and see if he agrees with you." And I was like, "Oh, that's right. It's like exactly what you're saying. It's up to us to see ourselves with eyes of forgiveness, with eyes of love, with eyes of compassion, the way we want to see others, the way we strive to see others. And it's also for us to give that to ourselves. And I have often said, when we join with others to complain, we have those moments of, upset with somebody. And so we get other people to be upset with us. And I say, well, if I took that person to a panel, some amazing trinity, let's say, Shiva, Buddha, Kuan Yin, Jesus, say, hey, I'm really upset with this person. They're going, oh, but we love that person and we love you. What is it? It's almost like we're children in the playground. And we have this opportunity when we are upset with someone. A Course in Miracles says thank that person. Take a moment, even when you're away from them and you're thinking about your upset, like thank them because they've shown a light in a place where you need healing. They've put an awareness within you of your ability to forgive yourself, to forgive that person. It really, you could just take that and plug it into your spiritual practice. Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you and I thank you. And I thank you because this is an opportunity for me to expand my heart further.
Yes, and one last thing I'll add to that is if we're in the habit of self-judgment, self-criticism, putting ourselves down because we don't measure up to perfection, then naturally especially when we're triggered, we're going to apply that same kind of attitude toward others. And so the practice sometimes is mastering self-acceptance, self-love, seeing the beauty in our own soul. And that way it's much easier to practice that with others.
I want to do a Stephen plug right now, Steve plug, because you are also, in addition to facilitating meditation and being a guide and being a spiritual guide, you spent many years as a facilitator of nonviolent communication, and I hear that in you, that consistent dedication to being self-aware as to how we speak, the words we use, how we talk to other people, and how important that is because. When we get into that trajectory of an argument or something, that's the discipline. That's the discipline to remember that we want to be kind, we want to be compassionate, we want to see with eyes of love the other as well as ourselves.
That's what our soul really longs for. Exactly.
Yes.
Our egoic mind, not so much, but our soul really wants that.
Maybe the egoic mind not at all, but it's we really want to be more mystics on the mystics path, where we're looking at the ego saying you're just being a pesky child, treat it gently, treat it kindly, but it's got to be tempered, and we have to have that self-awareness, and that I always go back to the willingness, because if we're not willing to do our practices, then nothing's going to happen. It's like saying if I don't exercise, my body won't get stronger. I can't think it's stronger. I have to do something about it. Just like our spiritual growth, we
Right.
we expand into this place of practice and spiritual discipline until we become on a level of mastery. We're just working toward that. We get a few steps down, a few steps up.
Talking about Adam and atom, and the egoic mind wants to go all atomic. It wants to throw an atomic bomb at whoever it's mad at.
That's another way to use atom. So now you had this other question. I was like, whoa, where are we going now? Um, you wanted to talk about dark matter and dark energy. And this one is really interesting because I don't know that these concepts are referred to necessarily, but the thing that I made mention here is that there is something called the Great Rays that's referred to 7 times in A Course in Miracles, and it's about bringing light into darkness. And I don't know if that's what you're going to be talking about, but I'm just going to say this real quickly. That's our responsibility to be aware of how we show up at any given time. And if we can bring light to darkness, to a moment where lightness of being is needed. There's a concept in the Jewish tradition, and you're gonna have to correct me because it's more your tribe. I think it's called Lamed Vad Zadakayim, where it's about the beams of light that exist at any given time. And that if there's a troubling situation, if there's a heartache, if there's something that I'm attributing to, I can step into that light. I can step into that light and then be a representation of what light is, and to try and bring light into darkness. And I was thinking of the movie The Shack, the book and the movie, where this man is looking to have revenge on the murderer of his child. And we would all say, of course, that's very justified, like our egoic mind. And it almost sounds harsh to say it's our egoic mind because we want to be so justified, but we don't know the greater picture of a soul's purpose. And so that's what happens in the shack. He goes into this realm of the Christian Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and they all talk to him about the greater purpose of every life. And they take him to this mountainside, and they have all these beams of light coming out up the mountain. And he's like, what's that? And they said, that's all of you. That's how we see you. And that includes your daughter. That includes the man who took her life. And I was like, wow, what a concept for us to be able to not just try to be the light, to bring the light, but to see the light in others who we were previously condemning. I have no idea if that's what you were talking about, but what are you talking about?
Well, it's sort of tangential to that because quantum physics and quantum mechanics came out of a theory that was originated by in around 1900 by Max Planck, and he came up with the concept of quanta, a tiny quantum particle, which laid the foundation for all of quantum physics. And then in 1905, just 5 years later, Einstein published a paper on the photoelectric effect. He introduced the concept of photons, which are particles of light. That was a key early development in quantum theory. But um, while he contributed to its foundation, Einstein later was uncomfortable, and he was open about this. He was very uncomfortable with the idea of the probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics because he wanted to believe there was a more complete deterministic theory that would explain quantum phenomena without relying on just chance. And that ties in more to the laws of physics, the third law of Newtonian physics, which is action and reaction, and that's what karma is based on. Um, so this also ties back to where we started this discussion about the nature of this world, the illusion of the physical plane, how it's just a dim reflection of the astral and causal and supercausal. So, according to quantum theory, about 80 some percent of this universe is dark matter, and about 29 point something percent is dark energy. I may have the figures not exactly right, but that leaves 1/100th of 1% that is actual matter in this universe. And that's why it's believed by many to be an illusion. And for the past 50 years, billions of dollars have been poured into research to confirm the existence of dark matter and dark energy. And it's still to this day, they haven't figured out, after billions of dollars of research, nobody seems to know. All the most brilliant scientists can't prove it scientifically. And even Einstein, who came up with these brilliant theories that advanced humanity's knowledge of science tremendously, was very insecure about his own theories. He came up with the theory of entanglement, and he later said, no, that's spooky energy. I don't believe it. Later, they proved that entanglement was real. He came up with the theory of dark matter and dark energy, and later he questioned it and said, I don't think that's right. But it turns everyone agrees that he was right.
I love Einstein. I love this discussion. Wow. I mean, it's amazing how much we can now look back to, as this Einstein time and look now at things we're trying to prove. And I think in the end, there's things we're never going to know. I think in terms of that type of concept, which I could not even repeat what you just articulated, but I know that it's that unknown, it's that mystery. In religion they call it the mystery, and there's things that are beyond what we can ever possibly know, and that's why science is not yet proving it, but it's not yet disproving it either. And anytime there's theological discussions with theologians versus, let's say, atheists, and I'm sure you've seen some of these discussions where everybody's basically just talking about what they believe. There's things that we're never going to prove. I say never, but who knows, that we have not yet been able to prove. But anyway, thank you for that.
The
That was,
big question, the big question for me is if this physical world is only 1/100th of a percent reality, and the other 99.999% is dark matter and dark energy. I have to wonder, and I don't know that because, like you said, we can't prove it, but I have to wonder, is the other 99.999% the astral, causal, and supercausal realms, and that we can't see them here, so we call them dark energy. They remain a mystery.
yeah, it makes sense though. What you're saying, it makes sense in the causal realms.
Mhm.
So then you asked me, and I love this question, and thank you for that. Why is it so difficult to remember these lofty theories of quantum physics during the challenges of everyday life? Do we have to master all of the inspiring disciplines that all the mystics teach, and that what science is now asking questions to? So that goes back, I'll be repeating myself now because I believe it goes back to willingness and to apply spiritual practice because there is nothing that's going to just make us suddenly be disciplined. We have to have the willingness and we have to do the work. I can have a mystical experience in meditation, or maybe I can have it looking at the palm tree outside my window. It's a and then taking that beautiful holy instant, it's called holy instant in A Course in Miracles, and trying being willing to bring it back at times when I am having difficulty. Can I bring back this established foundation that I have created within myself, within my heart, within my soul, when I am having the most difficult time? A Course in Miracles says there's a difference between peace and perfect peace. Peace can be, I'm out on my paddleboard and oh, it's so beautiful out here, but then I see a shark coming toward me. Am I gonna freak out? Probably so. Perfect peace, the mystic's peace, is like, okay, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. I will let it be. I will be like, Winnie the Pooh. It's like the Tao of Pooh. If you ever read that, it's like whatever is, and I'm at peace with it. And so we're striving to be at perfect peace. We tend to have temporary peace. And so that's why we have spiritual practice, so that we can start to look from a place beyond our egoic mind. So why is it so difficult? It depends on our level of dedication to our spiritual practices. And I think the more we move away from them, the more difficult we will have, more difficulty we will have dealing with challenges. If we have any kind of addiction, let's say, the addiction becomes the God. And for some of us who don't use substances, it could be a person. Suddenly, oh, I haven't been praying, I haven't been meditating. Why? Because I've made the relationship or the person my God. And so our willingness has got to be God first, whatever we call it, source first, higher self first. Paramahansa Yogananda said, everything in this world can wait. Your search for God cannot wait. A Course in Miracles says, this is a required course. Our spirituality is our required course. And if we don't adhere to it, we make something else our God or someone else our God, then yes, it's going to be much more difficult.
Couldn't agree more. So that question, why is it so difficult to remember these lofty theories of quantum physics and spirituality in the real world when push comes to shove, is because the mind, the egoic mind, is not in its home element here in the earth plane, and it buys into the separateness, the separateness of ego. It's completely clueless. The heart chakra understands the oneness of all compassion, forgiveness, all the divine qualities and attributes, but the egoic mind is more like a computer that's on board just to protect the little self. And it buys into this illusion. And this illusion, as I was just saying earlier, is 1/100% of the reality. So the egoic mind is just going off of that very limited, tiny fragment of reality. And it's about the self, about one's own feelings, one's own needs. And so it can't of its own volition, of its own sweet will, the mind cannot remember without the big brother or big sister of the soul reminding the mind, uplifting the mind. And it's only through regular practice of spiritual practices, meditation helps. But as you said, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to remember when push comes to shove, when you're triggered, when you're hurt, when you're angry or afraid. Um, but a lot of people develop a regular daily practice of meditation to strengthen the awareness of the soul from that higher level and to lift the mind up to the top of the causal plane, which is the home of the mind, so that the mind itself can remember that it has this capacity. it does have this capacity to learn to remember the soul qualities, the attributes of the soul, and to apply them in real life when it is needed the most, right?
Yeah, it goes back to the question of conditional love versus unconditional love. If we can get to the point where the knee-jerk reaction is not reactivity, but it's, oh, that's right, I now want to have this holy instant, and to have enough of an established inner peace that we can default to that, to go to that part of our heart that remembers love and remembers compassion and kindness and forgiveness. Which takes me to our final question, because you were talking about meditation and you were asking, is it easy or hard to practice deep meditation to have a metaphysical, mystical experience? And the Course in Miracles, after the text, has a series of workbook lessons, 365 of them, and each one has a certain amount of time that's dedicated to putting the workbook lesson to practice, simply by it'll say just take 5 minutes and think about it, take 10 minutes and think about it, take 15, and it's like, oh, it's telling us to meditate. And I have recently started listening to the audio book of Conversations with God, from back in the 90s, and had a whole series of books. And I started listening to the audio book of book one, Conversations with God. And I don't know if you've ever heard the audiobook. It's got two voices. It's got Ed Asner as the male God and Ellen Burstyn as the female. And Neil Donald Walsh will ask a question, and then they'll answer. And even sometimes in the middle of the sentence, it'll go from one voice to the other. It's very sweet. It's entertaining, but it's almost like I'm hearing it for the first time. I mean, I haven't read it in a long time, but I jotted this down today. There's one line where one of the God voices says, "If you do not go within, you will go without." Now, I don't think they meant to go without meaning lack. I think they meant your focus will be out there as opposed to in here. So if we don't go within, everything will be the egoic judgment, need to control, need to criticize, all of that, because that's what's without. So to go within is where we see the truth of one another, and we see our capacity to rise higher, love steadily, forgive readily. And I just thought this would be, since you're the meditation master, this is what you've dedicated so much of your life to. And if you'd like to say a little bit more about that and how often you guide meditation, but would you like to guide us as we wrap up with this final question? If you'd like to lead us in a brief guided meditation.
I would love to. And just to address that question, why is it easy or hard to practice deep meditation to be able to cultivate some kind of a metaphysical or mystical experience? The egoic mind sees it as not only hard, but impossibly hard, incredibly difficult. Oh my God, I don't have time for meditation because I got to do this and that and the other. I got to go to work and take care of myself and my family and my home and my car. And I've got all these chores, and meditation is going to be a complete waste of time. That's the way the egoic mind sees meditation, the unenlightened egoic mind, shall I say. Because after all, it's going by just 1/100th of 1% of the knowledge of ultimate reality. It's focused just on, like you said, going without into the outer world, and that's its world. That's its playground, and it's so completely absorbed in that. And yet to the soul, not only is meditation easy, it's effortless. It's completely natural. It's allowing itself to just be, to rise up toward its source. And when it does that through practice, it can lift the egoic mind out of the illusion of the physical world and bring the egoic mind up to the top of the causal realm, where the egoic mind has its home. And that's where, when we come up to that level of consciousness, and you see that in some of the great intellects and some of the great spiritual teachers, I don't include myself among them as a master, but I appreciate the compliment. When the egoic mind is brought up to that level through meditation, that's the point at which we can shift the attitude of the mind. We can change a habit or a behavior that is causing us problems, conflicts in the physical world. So even when I'm counseling couples, I often ask them, are you comfortable doing a few minutes of meditation before we start? Because that's where the connection is made, and that's where we empower, the soul empowers itself, and that can rub off onto the mind. So yeah, I would love to do a brief meditation now.
Great.
If you are in a peaceful spot, if you want to turn off your cell phone or silence any devices, that might help. And just sit comfortably with your back straight but not stiff. Feel the weight of your body on your chair or wherever you're seated. See if you can plant your feet flat on the floor unless you're sitting cross-legged. A lot of meditation techniques, and there are hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. A lot of them start out with the breath and with various relaxation um, techniques that help you to let go of tension because it's the physical tension in the body, in the muscles and the sinews and the joints that tether the soul to the physical body and the physical plane. So it is very helpful and important to find ways that work for you to relax. So since we have limited time, we'll just do a few deep, slow yogic breaths. If you take a slow, gentle inhalation through your nose and expand only your belly and not your chest. Breathing in stillness and connection with the earth. And exhaling in super slow motion through your nose or your mouth. Relax the lower half of your body from your hips down to your toes. Let go of virtually all tension there. Take another slow, silent breath, silky smooth, breathing in gratitude just for the moment of life that you're having right now. Exhaling in super slow motion, relax the upper half of your body, including your spine, your arms, your shoulders. Relax your neck and throat. Take another slow, silent breath. Really graceful, silky smooth, and deep, expanding only the belly. This time you're breathing in pure peace of mind. Breathing in an awareness of something beyond the mind and beyond the thoughts, the space between thoughts. Exhaling slowly, silently, relax your face and eyes, relax your head, relax your brain and your mind. And then return to natural, normal breathing, however you're comfortable to breathe. And observe the thoughts running through your mind. And as an experiment, you can ask yourself silently, I wonder what my next thought will be, and then just watch for it. And in that moment of curiosity, of focusing your attention on your mind and its thoughts, the mind often will freeze up and you'll experience a few moments of pure consciousness. There's a childlike curiosity and innocence about that. And that's what we cultivate in meditation, the space between thoughts. The mind is conditioned and trained and educated to continually generate thoughts about the outside world, and that's okay. We're not going to argue or struggle with the mind, but simply step back from it, observe, the thoughts of the mind as they are generated, as they are sent to you. And know that this is the way the mind shows up in the physical world. And then if you'll focus your attention into the center of your chest, just behind your heart, take a slow, gentle breath, breathing your tender, loving attention into that sacred space behind your physical heart, focusing in on the bright green light of unconditional self-love, self-acceptance, self-empathy, and self-compassion. As you exhale, let your awareness of that bright green light, that energy from your heart, let it expand all around your body. So you're enveloped in, you're bathing in the green light of the heart chakra. And taking another slow, gentle breath a little deeper into that space behind your heart, that sacred space. Focus in now on the unconditional love, acceptance, empathy, and compassion for others. As you exhale, let your awareness of your heart light expand out to the entire world, starting first with your loved ones, your home, your city, your state, your country, your continent, the hemisphere, and the entire globe, with approximately 8 billion human souls and countless other forms of life. And let your heart connect, actually feeling unconditional love, acceptance, empathy, and compassion for all of them. Mystics suggest that the divine source has hidden itself deep within the human heart. And if we dare to explore that very tender core of the heart, we'll find the light of source, which was hidden in the form of a yearning, longing, pining deep in the heart to reconnect with source. And to do that, we bring the attention up through the chakras, up to the throat, and up to the third eye at the base of the forehead, the spiritual eye, between and behind the two eyebrows. And with your eyes gently closed, they see nothing in the outside world, but your spiritual eye has the capacity to see into the inner realms in the silent space between thoughts. And to help calm the mind or to still the mind, you can repeat any calming word that you choose, that you're most comfortable with. It can be a word such as love or peace, or as some of the monks like to meditate on the word compassion. You can repeat this word silently through the back of your mind, but from the core of your heart, with longing, with yearning, with pining, to return to peace. And repeat it slowly at intervals. For instance, hear yourself calling out from your heart, love, 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 love. And that will help to focus your mind on an uplifting thought, but still in the space between thoughts. Focus your full attention at the base of your forehead by gazing into the center of the darkness that you see before you. You most likely see only darkness, cloudiness, empty space, or nothingness. Gaze into the very center of whatever appears before you, as if gazing about 8 to 10 inches ahead of you. Pay no attention to anything outside of the center. Let your focused, loving attention become like a loving laser beam of energy, shining a light straight into the middle of that vast, peaceful inner space, exploring it. And even if you see only darkness or cloudiness or emptiness, embrace that. See it with your full loving attention, unbroken attention, because the inner light of the higher planes is concealed, hidden, interwoven with the darkness. So even if you're seeing only darkness or so-called nothingness, that is the very first spiritual experience. Don't be beguiled, don't be fooled to think you're not seeing anything. And let go of virtually all tension in your shoulders, your neck, your face, your eyes. Relax the body 100% and put all of your attention into your inner gaze, your inner vision, your inner experience. If anything at all appears or shifts or changes in what you are seeing, sometimes circles of light or color, flashes of light or color might appear. Relax and enjoy the experience, gazing into the center of whatever appears before you. Let go of all strain, let go of effort to achieve goals or objectives. Allow yourself the pleasure and joy, the liberation of being in the now moment, fully experiencing whatever you're experiencing right here, right now, without trying to get somewhere or get something. Let go of all of that strain and struggle, all the clutching and grabbing to get an experience and be in the experience that you're having in the moment. When you notice thoughts coming from your mind, instead of trying to silence your mind, thank your mind. It's showing you that your full focused attention is not completely into your inner gaze, and just pull your attention from the thought and refocus it into the center of what you're seeing. The most important part of meditation is to move beyond, above and beyond the struggle with the mind, and to enjoy, fully relish and enjoy the experience. Meditation is the sacred inner journey through which the soul realizes itself and its divine nature, its divine essence, and all the attributes of the soul. And when practiced regularly, the soul lifts the mind up to help the mind remember these divine attributes from the source. And these divine attributes of the soul include bliss, non-violence or non-judgment, connectedness to everyone and everything, the wisdom buried deep in your heart, selflessness, the joy that the soul finds in helping others, fearlessness, deathlessness or immortality, and last but not least, humility. The soul has the attribute of humility built into every fiber of it. And the soul has the capacity to teach humility to the mind. If you think of prayer as talking to God, Goddess, we can also think of meditation as listening to God, Goddess, to receive. Prayer is sending. Meditation is opening your inbox to receive the inspiration, the upliftment, the healing, the light, the response from Source. Who wouldn't want to receive messages from that level of ultimate reality, highest level of consciousness? So when your mind says, I don't have time for meditation, your soul can respond by saying, we don't have time not to meditate. And when you're ready to come out, take a slow, deep breath, breathing in golden healing light, breathing in the remembrance of Source and that yearning, longing, and pining deep in your heart to reconnect with it and to bring that energy of Source into your body, into your mind, and into your physical world, your physical life, and all of its relationships. As you exhale, gently move your fingers, toes. Bring yourself back into your body. Take another deep, slow breath, breathing energy and wakefulness back into your body and mind. And as you exhale, if you like, you can bring your palms together in front of your heart into the ancient symbol of Namaste, which is a kind of salute from the light of your heart to the light of others. The fingers coming together, all representing the different races, creeds, and colors of humanity and of all life forms. And the thumbs coming together in front of the heart, representing the two twin principles of divine light and sound, through which Source is believed by mystics to have created all the entire universe and all the higher regions as well. Thank you for the opportunity to share that meditation, Lori. And thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Steve. The only distracting thought I had through the whole thing was I want to know where the timestamp is so I can do it again and again and again. So tomorrow morning before I head out to yoga, I'm going to do this meditation guided by you. Thank you so much. And the other thing you were saying was about, if we think we don't have time, I once heard, you may have heard this too. It's someone said if you don't have half an hour to meditate, then take an hour. It's about getting into the practice and remembering the importance of what it is that we're doing as we rise higher within our consciousness. I want to remind people that connecting to you they'll be able to see a link to your website in the comments section, and that on every Sunday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, you provide a free meditation and a brief message related to that meditation. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for being here. And I hope that anyone who listens will check that timestamp and use that meditation time and time again if they don't join you for meditation. And I know you occasionally have some in-person meditations that you provide as well. So your website is the way to find you. Is there any other contact information you want to provide?
Just I'll mention that I do an in-person meditation, guided meditation at the Aventura Public Library every Wednesday at 1 p.m. And then every Friday at 2 p.m., I do a similar meditation at the North Miami Beach Public Library. And those are both free and open to the public.
And then the Zoom meditation is on Sundays, and people would have to contact you so that they would know to get the link from you by way of their email.
Oh yes, and actually the Zoom link is posted on my website, which if I'll
Oh,
give you
okay.
the address now, which is mediation, which is meditation without the T in the middle, mediation hyphen USA dot net. So that's a little tricky to remember. Mediation hyphen USA dot net. And if you scroll down near the bottom of that website, you'll see the link to the Sunday 2 p.m. meditation. That's 2 p.m. Eastern time.
Right, right. Well, thank you again.
You're welcome.
I'm honored and pleased to be sharing the particle of atoms with you, and that you're in my world. Take care. We'll reconvene again soon. See what else you'd like to discuss. So thank you. I love you. God bless you.
You too. Thank you, Laurie.